Alright guys, welcome back. Today we are doing get products. So we're going to do a get product by ID and then get multiple products by search parameters. So here we go. We're going to start with our unit test again. Get product by ID query handler test. And then this will be our validation, but we don't have the things we need yet. So let's go ahead and do that. We will have one more test though. So test-driven development, right? So get product by ID query handler returns product not, well, throws, I guess. Throws product not found exception. No need to reinvent the wheel. Of course, instead of optional of product, we can say optional of or optional dot empty. We are going to use the product later on though. And then validation. Okay. So coming to our, let's reorganize our code a little bit. So the command handler is going to go here. And then I created a folder for query handler. So new Java class, get product by ID query handler. This one should be really easy. You guys should be able to do this one by yourself. Annotate it with @service, of course. The input is going to be a string, and the output is a product DTO, which is not a thing yet. So let's look at product and create a new product DTO. So we're going to need a getter, and we do need equals and hash code. And the reason we need this is because when we do our unit test, we need to compare two objects, but we don't want to compare the memory address. So overrides the equals method and compares the contents of objects instead of memory address. So this comes into play. When we do our unit test. Let's generate a constructor. We're just going to do an empty one because we have to do it manually. Okay, so now in our service class, we should be able to import product DTO. Great. And we need a constructor. Generate constructor. And we need a private final product repository, product repository. And then I'm just going to regenerate our constructor. There we go. So this should look really similar to our delete product by ID. I think it's almost exactly identical. So let's open that up. So first we want to log. So, well, we need a logger. So every endpoint is going to get logged. And this would be great. Okay. So now we are logging. Well, we have our logger. Now we need to log. So logger dot info. And I just realized this is logger dot error. This should be logger dot info because this is normal. Okay, when we do our product not found exception, then it's dot error. Get product by ID query handler. Optional of product. Optional product. These imports really slow you down. It's equal to product repository.find by ID. And then we're going to have to pass in the ID, but we have to pass in... Actually, no, this is fine. This is fine. We're just passing in an ID here. I'm thinking about the next one. Okay. So basically the same setup here. So we have, so if optional product is empty, then we're going to throw a product not found exception. So if you're trying to delete something and it's not there, you want to throw the exception. And it sends a result back to the UI with product not found exception. Product not found is our error message. We could probably include the ID in there. That would probably be helpful. We didn't do that, and I'm not going to do it. So what we want to do is return response entity dot okay new product DTO we just created, and then we pass in optional product dot get. So once it gets to this line of code, we know that it does exist. And we actually we wrote our code before our unit tests. But that's okay. Okay, coming back to our controller. So I did have a sanity check where I just returned all of the products. Of course, we're getting rid of that here. So, and we also have a product repository for the sanity check. We don't need that, and we don't want the repository on the controller. We want that in our service classes. So we're gonna just delete some of this stuff. Okay. Delete. So at get mapping slash products slash ID, right? Public void get product by ID. And then this is a path variable. So path variable string of ID. And then we need our service class. Private final get product by ID query handler, get our and we don't need the product repository. This is going to get cluttered, so we're going to do this. Okay, so in return, get product by ID query handler, execute, pass in the string, boom. And oh, it's not void. It's a response entity of type product DTO. Okay. So we come back to execute, comes in, it logs, and right here we want to include the ID. This is probably a candidate for a standardized way of doing stuff, but it's another discussion for another day. Okay, now we're logging. Great. Let's finish our unit tests. Okay, now that we did a bunch of stuff, now we can finish our validation. So we're going to say a response entity of type product DTO. Response entity is equal to, run it through the method, execute ID. So with this one, we're expecting it to return the correct thing. We're going to verify a few other things. So verify that the product repository was found by ID. If we can import, these imports drive me crazy. Find by ID. So this verifies that the product repository was able to find it by ID. Assert equals, you know it's going to be an import. for the 1000th time. Okay. Response entity dot, we're going to check the status code. And we want to verify that it's an HTTP status code. HTTP status of, okay, there we go. And we want to assert equals one more thing, that the response entity dot get body is equal to a new product DTO of the product. And this is where the equals and hash codes comes in, because technically this is going to be a new reference in memory. These are two separate objects, but when we override the equals method, what we're saying is compare the contents of them, even if they're different in memory. Okay. We'll run that, and while it's running, we'll work on our next one. So this one we want to verify that it throws a product not found exception. So we're saying returns optional.empty. Great. So, okay, yeah, I know you're going. So product not found exception is equal to assert throws. We're going to assert that it throws the product not found exception dot class. Yeah, another import. And, well, we don't need the braces actually. And we have a get product by ID query handler dot execute ID. So this asserts that the product not found exception was thrown. We can also assert equals that we said it should equal to product not found. That's our expected. And then we do exception, and we're going to look at our exception, get simple response, and get message. So we're validating that the correct message was sent. And our unit test passed. Great. Let's run this one. These should be very straightforward. Okay, and this one passed too. And of course, anytime you do stuff, you want to run all of your unit tests. So you can right click on test and or not. Here we go, run all tests. Okay, I expect those to pass. So let's focus on the next part. Okay, great. They all passed. And as we go, this is going to take longer and longer, right? Okay, let's close all this. Okay, that was the easy one. Get product by ID. You literally just copy paste exactly what we did before. This next one's going to be a lot harder and a lot longer, so buckle up. So when we look here at our final exam, we want to get a product. So get product by ID, that's what we just did. And we want to be able to get a list of products. So we're going to have search criteria. We want to be able to search by name or description. So one keyword is going to search for name or description. And it's really going to be containing, so not an exact match. We want to be able to search by category. We want to be able to search, and then we want to order by. So there's two options for order by. It's either going to be by price or alphanumeric order. This is really going to be ordered by name in alphanumeric order. And then depending on the region, we're either going to return US or Canadian results. And I told you this needs to be in the header. These are going to be query string parameters. So this is going to be a and we already did our DTO. We just did our DTO, so it doesn't include the timestamps and region. Okay, and we'll do caching later. We're not ready there. So this is going to be a lot. So let me show you kind of what we're doing. Is we're going to have one endpoint. It's going to be a search endpoint. There's going to be 3 query string parameters. One is going to be name/description, We're just going to use it in a way where we search the database for name or description. 2 is category. And 3 is order by. And here's a challenging part is each query string parameter is optional. So you can give anything you want, and if you give nothing, return everything. But then you can filter it down each one, and you can specify or not specify each one. So that's going to be a challenge. One more thing to think about is you can limit how many search results. Right now our database is really small, so I'm not going to limit our search results. Oh, I forgot one thing. In the header, it's going to have region, and we're going to have a default region of US. So if user doesn't specify a region, we're just going to say, oh, you didn't specify, so we're going to give you US data. What I was talking about is you can limit how many search results you have. So you can say like max 20 results. We're not going to do that here, but it's something to think about, especially if you have like a bajillion results. If you have 10,000 rows, you don't want to return all your rows. So something to think about. You can Google how this works. It's really easy. Okay, this is going to be a lot. You ready? Okay, we'll start by exposing the endpoint. So it's going to be a get mapping. And it's just going to be /products. Okay, public response entity. It's going to return a list of product DTOs. Get products. And let's link it up first. So we're going to say there's a query handler, right? It's a query, so it goes in this box. And this is just choices that we've made, right? Command handler, something that changes the state of the database. Query handler gets data. You know, there are other design patterns. You can put these in different folders if you want them to. So new Java class, get products, query handler. It's going to be at service, implements our query, input is a string. Actually, no, the input is way more complicated. The output is a list of product DTOs. Okay, I just want this to go right now. So okay. Implement methods, execute, great. So the input here is actually not going to be a string. It's going to be, we have a lot of inputs, right? It's not just one input, it's like 3 things. So let's go ahead and create that. It's going to be a get products query. We will need a getter. Okay, what are all the things we need? So private, we're going to need a region. We're going to do an enum for our region. Naming is really important, right? So this is going to be name or description. When I first ran through this, I just put name, and then I got confused later on because I was like, wait a minute, I'm using this for searching name or description. So naming is really important. I know it doesn't seem like it if you're a junior developer. Another thing is we're going to do something where we sort by. So we're going to call it a product sort by, product sort by. And we'll have to define what this is. We should probably do that now. Actually, this is an enum. So for now, the business just said 2 things that we can sort by. So name with a value of name, price with a value of price. And in this enum, I am, saying what the value is. In the other one we didn't. I'm just kind of doing it both ways so you can see both ways. And do you not like this because it's supposed to be a class? So private final string value. So basically we need to be able to set and get the value. So generate constructor. Great. And then we need to be able to set the value. So public static product sort by from value. This is like a common naming. So basically what's going to happen is we're going to pass in a string and then it's going to loop through and see, okay, does it match one of these things? And then return it. And if not, it's going to return null, which is really important because we want this to be optional, right? We want the region, well, the region's not optional, but anyway. So we're going to say string value. And we're going to say, we're just going to loop through. So product sort by. We're going to loop through the values. If sort by dot value dot equals ignore case value, return sort by. Else we're going to return null. Return null. I'm not going to go into too much detail here if you want to chat GPT this, and basically it takes in a string and loops through and sets the value essentially. Okay. So there's our sort by. I told you this was going to be a behemoth, right? Okay, let's generate our constructor. Should be as simple as that. And if you notice, we're just passing in category here as a string. So it's not an actual object of category. We're passing in it as a string. So coming back to our query handler, it's going to be a get product query. So that's what we're going to pass in. And here we're going to pass in a get products query. Okay, now it's happy. Great. So now we should be able to return, and we didn't pass it in, did we? Of course not. So many little steps, right? This might be better named like search products or query handler or something, but anyway. Execute. New get products query. Boom. And I do like these red squiggly lines. It tells us it's not going to compile. And we're not done yet. So I like that. Okay, now we need to pass everything in to this query handler. So if you look at our products endpoint, we're going to have a bunch of parameters in here, right? So here we go. So the first is, let's just go in order, right? So get products query. I'm going to copy this. So the first, remember this is our request header. This comes in the header. The value is going to be equal to region. And remember we said the default value is US. So default value is US. Okay, and that is a string of region. Okay, then we've got our request parameter. This value, well, we're going to say required is equal to false. So this first one, this request header, it is required, but if you don't give one, the default value is US. So there's always going to be a value here, right? This request parameter, this is not required. So this is So this is going to be the string category. Our next request param is going to be the exact same thing. Required is equal to false. A string of name or description. Oops. And the last one is going to be a request param. Required, false. Another string of order by. So we're getting strings, just regular strings from our endpoint, and that's what JSON and HTTP requests can handle, right, is strings. But we're going to convert them to our object types next. Okay, so now we take all these things and we pass them into our getProducts query. This whole object, all it does is just hold the data, pack all the data together, so we can hand it off to our execute method. That's all this class is doing. So we're going to say region dot value of, and we pass in the string. Okay, so it finds the value of the region. We're just doing category as a string, looks like. We're kind of doing a mix of things, so you can see different ways of doing it. Name or description is going to be a string. And then product sort by from value. This is the method we wrote. Order by. And we should probably rename it, right? It should probably be, well, no, it is order by. That's what we're going to send it through. Okay. So what happens is this string comes in, and then we loop through and say, okay, is the value name or price? Else, return null. And null is good for what we're doing with our query. Okay, that should be good. You can see how complicated this got. Now remember, your business logic wants to be in the service class. You can see why. I mean, just a couple of endpoints, this already got pretty cluttered, right? Imagine all this logic. We're about to put a bunch in there. So just trying to tie all the things we've learned together, design patterns and whatnot. Okay, we have a couple more things left. So this is a big complicated query. We're going to need a custom method to be able to do this. So coming over to the product repository, you can try to use the Spring Data JPA. I couldn't get it to work, and I'll tell you why in just a second. But I couldn't get it to work for how complex this was. So I did end up using an @query annotation. And I told you earlier that we don't want to use custom queries. Let me be very specific. I misspoke. So you can use a custom query, but we're going to use Spring Data to do it. Okay. Do not do a native query. Okay. What I meant to say was native query. So what's our method name going to be? So it's going to return a list of product. So remember, we're not returning a list of product DTOs yet. We're going to do that in Java. So this is just return a list of products. Find by name or description and region and category. So this is actually fairly close to what Spring Data JPA would do. But since we're annotating it with @query, it's going to override that. It's going to have a string of name or description. That'll be the first parameter. It's going to have a region of region, a string of category. And this is interesting. We didn't cover this yet, but a sort called sort. SQL allows you to sort, order by name or description. And so I'll show you how to define a sort, but basically it's really easy. It's something you could Google in like 10 seconds. So we pass this into the method, and then it returns it in a specific order. Okay. Next up, I'm just going to copy my query and just show you guys. I used AI and a lot of debugging to figure this out. So select P from product, P, where, and this is the key right here. Name or description is null. This right here allows you to not put anything in. So I was getting a bunch of errors where if I didn't define a name or description, it would just return an empty list. You want it to be able to handle nothing. So name or description is null, or p.name contains, like is SQL keyword for contains, name or description, which are little symbols here, or p.description is like, meaning contains, name or description. So what's happening here is name or description is looking for this specific name or description. So if you name this wrong, you'll get an error when you boot it up. So this is the first part of your SQL query, and this generates a SQL query in whatever database you have. So right now I have MySQL. If it was Postgres, it would convert it to Postgres. You would let the ORM handle that, right? The object relational mapper, if you remember. Next part of our query is and p.region is equal to region. Region is required, so we don't have the is null thingy. And then we have category. So category is null, or p.category.value. Remember, we have category and then the value of category. So just copy this. I'll put this in the notes of this video, so you can just copy it. But try to generate it yourself. Try to figure it out and use AI to get you there. Okay, so now all we have to do is really just call this method. So first, we're just going to get a list of products. So not product details yet. And we don't have a product repository. Close product repository. And now that we just created that custom method, we can just call it find by name or description in region and category. What a mouthful, right? And I'm just going to copy this so we know what to pass in. So this get products query contains all of this stuff. This is the box that we sent, right? So we region, category, name, description, product sort by, right? So query dot, first thing was get name or description. Query dot get category. Oh, get region is first. And then we need a sort. Let me show you how to do this. So there's something already built in. So sort product sort is equal to new sort. So, well, it's not exactly what I wanted. Basically, we're going to do sort dot by, and then we can say what order we want it in. That's essentially what we're going to do. But there is some logic here, so I'm going to just create a new method. So define sort. We're going to pass in query dot get product sort by. So let's just create this method. So if we don't give it anything, right? If null, we still want to get results. Just don't sort it at all. So unsorted, right? So if product sort by. So if product sort by is equal to null, then we're just going to return sort dot unsorted, plain and simple. Else, we want a product sort by is equal to product sort by dot value of product sort by. And we never did a get value method, so here we go. Get value. And then we will return sort dot by, and then we'll say string dot value of sort by. Okay, this was probably a little wordy here. I probably could have made this a little bit better, but that's essentially what's happening with sort, is we're saying, okay, you can do unsorted, you can do some other stuff too. So sort dot by unsorted, and there's a bunch of stuff you can pass in. A direction, a type sort, stuff like that. So, okay. So the whole point of that was to tell it, okay, how do we want our products to be sorted? And then we're just going to pass in product sort. Because we pass in our sort here at the end. Okay, so this returns a list of products. Great. Well, we're returning a list of product DTOs. So return response entity dot OK, and we're going to do product list dot map, well, stream dot map product DTO. Should be : new. Did I do this right? Oh, we didn't collect it. Collect to list. Boom. Great. Okay. This should be it. Let's see if it works. Boot it up. And just FYI, I'm coming over to my workbench, MySQL workbench. I already put a bunch of data in the product table, and I used AI to do so. So you can see I have a ton of stuff in here with the US and Canada, a bunch of prices. I just plugged this into ChatGPT, said make this for me, and it did. So I've got about, I think, 20 responses. So did it compile and boot up successfully? And I ran the unit tests. Okay, it booted up correctly. That's a good sign. All right. So I define this new endpoint, localhost / products. And then the first thing is you want to define your header. So you can say region. Our default region is US. I can select it or not. I'll select it. And let's just start by nothing. And so these are our parameters, right? Category, order by, name or description. So let's just do nothing. So all we have is the header of US. Here we go. There it is. Okay. Let's just look at MySQL. US has the Great Gatsby. And there it is. And then the next one is smartphone. Smartphone. So it looks like this worked. Let's make sure floral print summer dress is not in there. It's not. Okay, great. Let's just test one thing at a time. So headers, let's put in Canada. And we do get the floral print summer dress. We get organic quinoa, which is also Canada. So it looks like it's working. We can also just not put in anything. And the default value is US. So great, great, great. Okay, let's look at our parameters one by one. Let's put in category of food. 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 Great. Let's put in a name or description of organic. Looks like I got the same results. Let's just put in the letter O. Double letter O. Okay, so we got tools and we got book. So it is searching name here and it's searching description here. So that's, well, it could be name or description there. And we have Bluetooth in the name. Okay. Let's search speaker, which is a description. There we go. Speakers in the, so it is searching name or description. Really good. Okay. Let's do order by price. So this should be ascending order. $12.99, $14.99. Looks like it worked. Great. Okay, let's try some random combinations. We'll say, I don't know, anything with an O. So we got book, and it is order in order. Really good. Okay. And let's add a category. Organic maple syrup. Okay, great. Let's order by name instead. So I don't think this will change actually. Nope, it didn't change. Okay. Let's delete. This is another thing, right? So this is null, but this will be empty string. So we need to make sure this works too. And it does. Okay. Let's remove food. And now we're just ordering by name. So children's book, gardening tool set, men's casual shirt, men's leather jacket. Yeah, this looks really good. I did a ton of testing beforehand to make sure this is working correctly, and I promise you that it is. So that's 4 different parameters that we're looking on one search endpoint. That's pretty complicated, but I think we did a really good job here. Okay, and I just added my logger statement, and in order to get this to work, I did have to add the toString method. So if I come down here into my runner, we can see it was actually printed out. Okay, on to the unit tests. Okay, we're going to write 4 unit tests. So at test, void, test get products, query handler, returns empty list. So when product repository dot find by name or description and region category, and I'm just going to pass in a bunch of nulls. Then return collections dot empty list. Response entity of a list of product DTOs. Response entity is equal to get product query handler dot execute, and you need a new get products query. And again, I'm just going to pass in a bunch of nulls. Assert equals response entity dot get body, and it should equal a collections dot empty list. Now here's a really important point. We don't directly test this method, right? So we wrote this method, we have a custom query, but we don't test, does it actually return the correct thing? So for example, if we have a list that has US and Canada, and we passed in, hey, I just want Canada, we can't test that directly because this doesn't directly call the database. We're mocking this. So all you can do is just make sure the rest of your code works. And to make sure it's actually returning the right thing, you just have to do a lot of manual testing, which is kind of weird, but that's how it goes. So we're really testing the query handler, not the actual repository method. Okay, so here we go, another test. Okay, so this time I'm going to do any. So any, 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 and any. So this is another way you can do it, depending on exactly what you're trying to return. I don't think it matters much for this exact test. Then return, and we're going to create a method called getProducts. And we're just going to return a list of 2 products. So now we have our getProducts. It is then going to return a response entity with a list of product DTO. List product DTO. And then we run it through the method. So getProducts query handler dot execute new getProducts query. And again, I'm just going to pass in null, 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 and null. So this is a little weird. We're kind of just telling it what to return, and then we're really testing the rest of our code, not the actual repository method. So list product DTO actual list is equal to response entity dot get body. Okay. And then we'll assert equals. The expected is 2, and then the actual list is size. We could unit test some other stuff, but I'm just kind of hitting a broad stroke here. Okay, one more thing I do want to test is we do have this method in here, define sort, and some logic. So I would like 2 more unit tests to say, okay, does it successfully go in here? And does it successfully do this? So you can't unit test something that's private because I have no access to it outside of the class. So I'm going to change this to public. And this might be a good candidate for an entirely new class with just one method. Maybe we could do that. I'm not going to do that for this video, but maybe that's a good candidate. Anytime I start seeing public methods, I start wondering that very question. But we'll ignore that for now. So test void test define sort returns unsorted. So sort is equal to get products query handler dot define sort, and we pass in null. So what's happening here is in this method we're passing in null. We want to make sure it returns this unsorted. So assert equals sort dot unsorted. That's our expected. And then our sort. Let's test the other condition. Void test define sort returns sorted. Okay. Sort is equal to get products query handler dot define sort But this time we're going to actually give it something. So product sort by name. And then we're going to say assert equals then we'll say assert equals sort dot by. And I ran the test earlier and it failed, and I found out I needed something else. So you need a sort. Our sort method also included a direction by default. So the direction was ascending, right? Ascending order. And then we're sorting by the property of name. And we're going to compare it to the sort we just did. Okay, let's run all of our unit tests. While they're running, we could have a long discussion on, is this enough unit tests? And the answer is I kind of don't fully know. We could probably have another unit test for our DTO mapping. I mean, do you really need to test a constructor? Probably not, but maybe. We could unit test the return value of the response entity. This one does not have a product not found, because if you don't find something, then it just returns empty list, so you don't really have to test that. So I think we're kind of covered, but unit testing is kind of an art as well as a science. All right, so we have 11 unit tests, and they all passed. Okay. So next up will be caching. New Java class. This will be cache configuration. We're going to annotate it with @configuration. And if you look here inside, it's a component, which means it goes in the Spring container. We're going to say enable caching. And we're going to do enable scheduling. This is how we'll delete the cache. Again, not the best solution, but the quickest, simplest. So first, let's get our cache manager in memory. So @bean public cache manager, cache manager. And then we have a concurrent map cache manager is equal to new concurrent map cache manager, and we're just going to return it. We're not going to do any other configuration here, but we will loop through an enum, which will tell us what all of our caches are. So let's do that. New Java class, it's going to be an enum. We're going to call it cache name. I'm going to do the standard enum format. What we're going to do is we're going to loop through all of these enums and then add it to the cache manager. What that will allow us to do is in the future, we can just come and add to this and we'll have a new cache. Next up, we're going to do our scheduled delete. So the easiest way to do this is just do an @scheduled. We're going to do an inner class with a component. Public class cache evictor. And we're going to have a cache, private final cache manager, and then constructor injection. It's going to have one method, so @scheduled, public void evict cache manager, get cache names. This will get all the cache names, and then we'll loop through. So for each cache name, we're going to do cache manager dot get cache name, and then we're going to clear. There we are. And then we need a fixed delay. So I'm just going to copy this, but we have a private static final long cache evict delay in milliseconds and 600,000. which is equal to 10 minutes. So I'm going to pass that in. Okay, now our cache is set up. All we have to do now is add it to our method. So I'm going to do it on the controller this time. So we simply do at cacheable and do the Spring Framework one. And then we pass in products. It would be nice to pass in an enum here, but it gets really finicky and feisty. So this is fine. Okay, let's boot it up and verify. Okay, so the first time we booted it up, it took 625 milliseconds. Remember, that doesn't count, not the first time. So if we do it again, 19. And we're consistently getting about 10 milliseconds. And if you notice our log here, we only have one log statement, which means this method was only ran once. So then it was put into the cache, and this method was never called again. It just checks the cache and directly returns it as opposed to going through the method. Okay, one more thing that we might not have covered is, do you unit test your cache? And the answer is no, you do not unit test your cache. This is probably a whole longer discussion on all the things you can unit test, but cache is not one of the things that we unit test. So we're actually done. In the next video, we're going to cover the put and the post call for actually creating a new product and all of the exceptions that go along with that. All right, I'll see you then.